Hi, I just wanted to post another update on some of the hacking work I've been doing on Musescore. I want to show you a couple of the changes I've made. Still working on the Pianoroll editor, so let's start by opening that up. One of the first things that I made was this change here where it lets you zoom with a little bit more accuracy by right-clicking and selecting Pianoroll editor. So if you want to go to the very end, you can click there. Whoops. And that will take you right to the very end. This will take you back to the start. And you could do this in the last revision, but it was a little bit less accurate. This way we're missing fewer notes. Another thing is you can press the space bar to get the play started. That was missing in an earlier version. So pressing space bar will start and stop the playback there. Another thing, if you saw my previous video, you might notice the background has changed a little bit. I have adjusted the colors so it's a little bit easier to tell which of these are the white keys and which of these are the black keys. Something else you might notice is that a lot of these notes have numbers after them now. This number indicates the voice. So if we were to select these and see that these notes are all blue, that indicates they are in the voice number 1, which is this one here. That's the blue voice. What we can do though is select those notes, maybe those ones, and press number 2 here, and now they've just, if you look over here, you see they've just changed to the green voice number 2. If we click on the score, we can see that, whoops, we can see that we have the blue number 1 voice and the green number 2 voice, and this functionality was present before, but the numbers weren't so visible, so it wasn't as easy to tell when you were switching voices. And having multiple voices is just a way to have multiple melodies on the same line. Okay, let's see. Another thing you can do is you can press Ctrl-click and to add notes. And let's get back to voice number 1. And what this is doing is it's looking in the score to find the nearest chord. Now, Musescore has a lot of limitations in it. It's a music notation program. It's not a regular, well, it's not a something like FL Studio where you can just drag note blocks around. So this is somewhat limited. All it does is it finds the closest voice, or the closest chord, and it adds a second pitch to it. So if we go back to the start here, we see that we have a C note at the top. So if we Control-click on the C4 down here, we now have an octave. And if you want to add a G to that to get your G5, your C5 chord, it will add it in. And this is all based. And if we get rid of a few of these notes, see in the score those have changed to rests. If you want to put an F in there, you can just Control and click there, and that rest becomes an F. And if you want to make that maybe an F major chord, you can go F, then an A, and then a C. And this is just an easy way to, you could easily do this in the score view. It's just a little bit more convenient to do it here. Well, it's just an additional way to do it. So that is that. Another thing that you can do is if you add a drum part, so let's go back to the original score and add a drum set. Going to under, so I pressed I to open up this instruments panel. Then we're going to add a drum set to the score, and we can see it's down here now. And we're going to press N to go into Note Add View, and we're going to select a 16th note. And if you look down here, you can see the hi-hat is the map to the letter G. So we're just going to press letter G a bunch of times. So there's our hi-hat that we're adding. But of course, you want to have more than just a hi-hat and drum part. And so let's right-click and go into the Pianoroll editor. And you can see here's our new drum part down here. And I'm going to press Control and mouse wheel, and that's going to expand this a little bit. Maybe not quite so much. And make that a little bit longer. Okay, and okay, and Shift and Scroll wheel will move it back and forth like that. So let's say you want to add, well, first thing you might notice is that we now have drum note names in the side here. So you can see we have the low, let's see, I can't move this yet, but you can see there's enough of a word here to give you a clue what's going on. So you've got the Chinese symbol, you have a crash, so, and if you click on here you can hear it's the sound. Chinese symbol, you got a crash, here's the ride, here's an open hat, there's a low tom, and there's a side stick and a bass drum. So let's say that we want to add a bass in here. What we can do is, if you remember, if we control and click, that will add an extra note in the same chord. So let's add a bass drum on beat 1 and a bass drum on beat 3. And another thing you might want to do is add in an acoustic snare. That's this one. So I was clicking on that. You click on it, you can hear it. So let's add an acoustic snare on beat 2 and beat 4. So we've got a very basic beat here. Let's listen to that. Okay, and there's a quick and easy way to lay down a drum beat. And you can copy and paste that into additional measures to extend that drum rhythm. Okay, not exactly going to make the top 40, but it's good for demonstration purposes. So let's say you want to change this up in bar 3. Let's say you want to get rid of a few of these notes here. I'm just going to control and click on the notes themselves to do an add select, and then delete to get rid of them. So that gives you a bit of a different sound. Okay, but let's say that you don't want to have this kick snare anymore. You want to have the toms do something. So what we can do is we go up to the high tom here, and we're going to click and add here to get 3 tom hits, and then the high mid tom, which is a F. That's not an F. Oh, that's not an F at all. That's a C. Okay, and then let's say we want some low toms here. That's an A, so let's give us 3 A's over here. And we're going to finish off with a crash. That's this one, so that is a C sharp. And we can come back and listen to that. Okay, and let's listen to that all together again. Okay, and there's a quick and easy way to fill in a drum part. You can do all of this in the score view. This is just taking advantage of some shortcuts that you can use directly in the editor here. One more thing is you might want to change the play events up here. These are just ways to alter the playback. These do not affect the score. This just affects playback. But you can change the on time, which will just shift the note back and forth. So if we put that up to 100, you can see it shifted left a little bit. We can put that up to 500. And see that it shifted, shifted right a whole lot more, and that's just a little bit of delay for playback. It doesn't affect the score, just playback. Let's put that back to 0 because that's not so useful. And also change the length here, which is just a way to make notes a little bit shorter if you want them. So often this defaults to 950. So if you click there, that will make it shorter. Actually, this is a drum pattern, so that's not going to affect drums. If you were to do that on this up here, switching back to the piano, then that will work. And make that 1000 to go full length, and maybe 100 if you want to make this 1/10 what it's supposed to be. Maybe 800 to make it 20% of what it's supposed to be, or 950 is the default, and that just takes about 5% off the end of it just to make the notes sound a little bit detached. Okay, let's go back to the drum editor here. But the third thing you can do is change the velocity here. So let's go back to our toms. and I'm going to change the velocity here. These sound a little bit quiet if you on playback. Let's start playing that again. Yeah, I'd like to boost those, kick those toms up a little bit. So let's change the offset to 20. So this is going to make them 20% louder. We play it back. So let's make that last one 20% louder too, and make this one 0, so it's a little bit easier to hear. And let's play that again. Oh, maybe that's not so easy to hear, but let's boost that to 100% louder and hear that again. Okay, and we can boost the other notes too, so let's make these all 20% louder. And we can even copy and paste that into these other notes here. And finish off with these toms here. Then when we play that again, yeah, that drum line is just that much stronger. Okay, and another thing to look at is you might wonder what this little box here does between offset and user. Not the most obvious name well, basically offset takes the dynamics name that would be here ordinarily. Let's see, where's the view? There's the palettes. Okay, let's add in some dynamics. Where are the dynamics? There they are. So yeah, so if this is a P, then in playing in piano, then these notes are going to be a lot quieter, and this means make it 12% of whatever the value of that P would be. So you've just heard that was a little bit quieter, and we're getting 12% louder than that. However, if you then go to user, this ignores whatever the dynamics are and then just allows you to type in directly what loudness you want. So this goes between 1 and 127. So if you want to boost that to the top, just put that 127 and come back and we can play that again. Okay, and you heard that. That first tom was being played as loud as it could because we're at user 127, but everything else was being played piano. And these are still getting the boost. That's still 20% above whatever piano would be. But if we want to set this back to offset, then it's going to automatically convert to whatever the closest the percentage offset would be. So in this case, if you're playing piano and you want to boost it as high as it goes, 78 is going to give you the maximum MIDI output is going to give you. And because 78% above piano is going to give you the 127. Or, well, in any case, you can probably just leave it on offset. That's probably what you want anyhow. So that is what I have so far. It is still a patch. I don't know if the team is going to integrate this yet or not. Oh, one more thing. You might have noticed down here there are some notes that are not filled in, like this one. If you click on it, you can hear a sound, but it doesn't show up. It doesn't have a name here. And you can even add a clap to your... Actually, let's get rid of those toms. Let's add in a couple of claps. Come back and play that again. And let's get rid of that dynamic because that's a little bit quiet. Okay, now how are we playing this note that has no name? Well, if you come back over here and you go into edit mode, you're going to see we have an edit drum set button down here, and these are all the drums that have been named and have fancy notes for the score all set up. What the piano editor is going to do is, you see that this is an E flat, and if you want to know which octave it is, you can see if you look up here, that will tell you the sort of absolute name of it. So this is actually a D sharp 2, or a D sharp in the second octave. So if you go to the edit drum set and you sort the notes by name and you go to a D sharp 2, a D sharp in the second octave, there it is. You can see we don't have a name for it. So let's call that a clap and press enter, and you see the name is now appearing on our keyboard, and we now have a note head for it, and it is now possible to well, see it in the score as well, because without defining your drum set click here, it's not going to show up there, because you have to define the pattern in order for it to show up in the main score. But if you scroll through this MIDI patch, or if you load other drum kits that might come in other packages, they're going to have different names for these. So yeah, you can see even with the default drum kit, there are some notes here that aren't mapped to anything. So if you really want to use it, you might want to go through and add in custom names for each of those. But see, not every note here maps to something. It's mostly those low ones. But this is going to be different for every drum kit. So yeah, if you have a sound which is not hooked up, just go through the drum set, fill in the data, and all you really need is the name. And then you can start using it both in the score and in the Pianoroll editor here. And let's just play that again. And there you have the drum kit. I guess one more thing is you can click and drag these, although if you drag it out of range, it's going to wrap around like that. So that is all for this commit. I have a couple more things I might want to try, but I just want to show what I have so far. And yeah, I hope you find this. If you found this useful, please leave something in the comment below. Right now, I don't know what the status is with integrating it into the main body of the program. I'm hoping it will be part of the 3.0 release, but I really don't know right now. In any case, thanks for watching.